looking at the financial center. Three of us, 2 broken windows. Oh, God!
September 11, 2001 was a day of national tragedy and individual misery for countless people. Multiple criminal acts took place that day, which resulted in a massive increase in defense spending, a costly global war on terrorism, the creation of new federal agencies like the Department of Homeland Security and TSA, and the quick passage of the Patriot Act, which gave law enforcement agencies sweeping search and surveillance powers over U.S. citizens without a warrant. This video is, and to those thousands more who to this day have had the quality of their lives diminished because of the conditions they were subjected to that day as they attempted to rescue those in trouble. And as difficult as it may be for some of you to believe the facts stated in this video, the Project for the New American Century, or PNAC, formed in 1997, was a neoconservative think tank based in Washington, D.C. that focused on United States foreign policy. PNAC's stated goal was to, quote, promote American global leadership. Of the 25 people who signed PNAC's founding statement of principles, 10 went on to serve in George W. Bush's administration. In September of 2000, exactly 1 year before the 9/11 catastrophe, PNAC launched its most influential publication, a 90-page report entitled Rebuilding America's Defenses, which asserts that the United States should, quote, seek to preserve and extend its position of global leadership by maintaining the preeminence of U.S. military forces. They state that they need to exploit the revolution that is transforming technology and bring it into the military in order to, quote, preserve American military preeminence in the coming decades. In their minds, what will speed such a transformation? Their answer? Quote, some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor. 1 year later, such a catalyzing event presented itself with 9/11, later referred to by Bush and his cabinet as a modern-day Pearl Harbor. The account turned out to be not so full and complete. The commission, now known to many as the 9/11 Omission Report, left out many obvious facts, including the fact that a third building in the World Trade Center complex completely collapsed that day, and it wasn't even struck by an airplane. Described as being damaged in the attack, which started fires on several floors, the 47-story steel-framed federal office building known as World Trade Center 7 collapsed in 6.5 seconds at 5:20 p.m., more than 7 hours after the second Trade Center tower fell. And speaking of Building 7, the BBC conducted a live report in which reporter Jane Stanley announced that World Trade 7 had collapsed. There was just one small problem with the report. Building 7 was still standing in the background as Stanley was reporting that it wasn't standing. Matter of fact, Building 7 wouldn't collapse until 20 minutes after the report of its collapse. Building 7, which wasn't even hit by a plane, only burned for 6 or 7 hours.
Are you prepared to take the oath, Senator?
I am.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear
that I will execute the office of President to the United States faithfully.
that I will execute
faithfully the office of President of the United States.
President of the United States faithfully.
And will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God?
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
It is my great personal honor to present the 44th President of these United States, Barack Obama.
My fellow citizens, I stand here today humbled by the task before us, grateful for the trust you've bestowed, mindful of the sacrifices borne by our ancestors. I thank President Bush for his service to our nation. As well as the generosity and cooperation he has shown throughout this transition. A nagging fear that America's decline is inevitable, that the next generation must lower its sights. Today, I say to you that the challenges we face are real. They are serious and they are many. They will not be met easily or in a short span of time. But at a moment when the outcome of our revolution was most in doubt, the father of our nation ordered these words be read to the people. Let it be told to the future world that in the depth of winter, when nothing but hope and virtue could survive, that the city and the country, alarmed at one common danger, came forth to meet it. America, in the face of our common dangers, in this winter of our hardship, let us remember these timeless words. With hope and virtue, let us brave once more the icy currents and endure what storms may come. Let it be said by our children's children that when we were tested, we refused to let this journey end, that we did not turn back nor did we falter. And with eyes fixed on the horizon and God's grace upon us, we carried forth that great gift of freedom and delivered it safely to future generations. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
From UFOs to ghost and psychic powers, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Here are the facts. The Federal Emergency Management Agency was created in 1976 and charged with handling domestic emergencies. When most people think of FEMA, they think of hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, and floods. Since its inception, FEMA has consistently saved American lives. Like the Boy Scouts, FEMA aims to be prepared. They provide logistical support, food, clothing, and other services in emergency situations. The agency has also built housing facilities in locations across the world. To the mainstream media, this is just another step in preparing for catastrophes. But to others, it's something much worse. Here's where it gets crazy. According to broadcaster Alex Jones, FEMA is a front for a secret government, and the housing locations will actually serve as quarantine centers or internment camps. This is not an unfounded fear. After all, during World War II, the U.S. forced over 100,000 Japanese Americans into government camps for the duration of the conflict. And civil unrest could be considered a domestic emergency. How would this insurrection occur? Theorists cite any number of possible causes, from the establishment of a one-world government to a national pandemic. Some believe a global elite of bankers and aristocrats may artificially create a disaster to trigger a massive incarceration of U.S. citizens who object to the plan, whatever that plan might be. Fringe researcher Mary Louise alleges that FEMA keeps a red list and a blue list, where people on the blue list will be shipped to camps for quarantine or re-education, while those on the red list will be executed. Skeptics rightly point out that this conspiracy requires an amazing, even implausible, level of organization. Also, a large natural disaster can displace hundreds of thousands of people, so building temporary housing in advance seems like a good idea. Yet there's another angle here. The U.S. already holds the world's largest prison population, with over 2 million people incarcerated. Most of the people who believe that FEMA is a cover for a mass imprisonment also believe in the Illuminati, Freemasons, or satanic conspiracies. Sometimes they believe in all three. The outlandish nature of some theories may make them hard to swallow, yet the facts are foreboding even to skeptics. The federal government has indeed constructed massive housing facilities across the United States, from Oakdale, California to Atlanta, Georgia. Executive orders have given FEMA and other agencies increasingly broad emergency powers, even allowing the U.S. Army and Marine Corps to perform domestic operations. Theorists like Dr. John Coleman allege the focus of FEMA has steadily moved away from natural disasters to concentrate on the management of a hypothetically unruly populace. In 2003, FEMA was incorporated into the Department of Homeland Security. To most Americans, this is just another game of bureaucratic musical chairs. However, It makes perfect sense to conspiracy theorists. Before you reject this theory, take a look at the laws surrounding the Constitution, FEMA, Homeland Security, and other related agencies. Pay close attention to Rex 84, the Patriot Act extensions, Operation Garden Plot, and the executive orders that created FEMA. Conspiracy theorists think these documents are only the tip of the iceberg. The rest, for now, is stuff they don't want you to know.
This is Ben C. Solomon in Monrovia, Liberia. This city of 1.5 million is the first major metropolitan area to face an Ebola outbreak since the virus was discovered in 1976. Hundreds have died here since the outbreak began in May, and the World Health Organization expects thousands of new cases in the coming weeks. With a limited number of hospital beds and personnel to treat the sick, many of the infected are left to die at the hospital gates.
It's heartbreaking. There's nothing I can do about it because I have no space, I don't have the capacity.
Local and foreign-run treatment centers alike are unable to cope with the surge. Here at the Doctors Without Borders Treatment Center, they too are at capacity.
What we're looking at here is about 350-bed hospital. No one have never done this before. To turn people away at the door that are sick, that is a new experience and a difficult one to handle because we are full every day. We are not capable of building fast enough.
10 to 15 die each day here, but their beds are quickly filled. The virus is spreading fast among families in Monrovia's slums, and with an incubation period over several weeks, no one knows exactly how many more patients will arrive in the months ahead.
If you look back in time, MSF have been able to cope with outbreaks that have been going on from year to year because they have been small. But at the moment we are down on our knees. So who else is there?
After a few hours outside, a crowd formed around Ibaga and his family. Many were angry, urging them to go home.
They say because the virus, the people will not look at us, so we should carry back to the hospital.
To preserve our independence, we must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt. We must make our choice between economy and liberty or profusion and servitude. Wow. I place economy among the first and most important of Republican virtues, and public debt is the greatest of the dangers to be feared. It is incumbent on every generation to pay its own debts as it goes.
We must have a central bank to secure this country's finances.
If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their money, first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of their property until their children will wake up homeless on the very continent their fathers conquered.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
What's happening? Where am I? I believe perhaps you understand now, pal, but you are afraid. JFK, Hartman, what does this have to do with my house and my dog? Oh, okay, that's enough. I want to go home now. This is the last president to stand up to the Fed. You must see. On June 4, 1963, President Kennedy signed Executive Order 11110. This executive order empowered the U.S. Treasury to issue real money without the Fed. It would have worked. Kennedy's plan to dismantle the Federal Reserve machine had begun. 6 months later, John F. Kennedy went to Dallas and never returned. No way. No way they could do that. The new president, Lyndon Johnson, threw out Kennedy's order. And since JFK, no president has dared confront the secret powers behind the Federal Reserve. They consolidate bigger and bigger banks, print more and more money, accountable to no one, decimating our nation's wealth for the benefit of a few. Why? Why do this?
But anyway, I've had people calling me saying they go out to their mailbox and they find a little red dot or a little blue dot on their mailbox, and they wonder what the little red dot and blue dot is. Well, it's marking your mailbox by the government, so when foreign troops come in here on us after martial law, if you have a red dot on your mailbox, they take you out immediately and shoot you right in the head. But if you have a blue dot, they take you to the FEMA camps being built by Halliburton right now to house 50 million Americans. They're building enough concentration camps in America by Halliburton that Cheney's getting rich off of, Vice President Cheney's getting rich off of, to put those with the blue dot on your mailbox in those concentration camps. Now, if you go out and you find a pink dot on your mailbox, that means that they believe you'll be a good slave and you're going to go along with the program and serve our international Antichrist masters. So watch for that dot.
Every army लक्ष्य अपने भोसले उदाहरणों किधर कवर दम के झूला रे तो दो भी चला रे ना दो भी ना बोला no say Sardam 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 c'est sûr que
جيبك بالله
الله أكبر
الله أكبر خلص اكتبوا
لا تقرب علي
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has expressed concern that Russian involvement in the Syrian civil war could deepen a conflict that has already claimed nearly 250,000 lives and triggered a massive outflow of refugees, tens of thousands of whom are seeking shelter in Europe. Videos on social media purportedly showing Russian tanks and military personnel have led to accusations Russia is conducting another undeclared hybrid war. Responding to a question from Agency France Presse on a Q&A session on his Facebook page, Stoltenberg said, "I am concerned by reports that Russia may have deployed military personnel and aircraft to Syria. Any military support to the Assad regime could further escalate the conflict, leading to the loss of more innocent lives." The NATO chief's remarks came after Bulgaria said Tuesday it had received reports that Russian planes were flying over the Balkan country. Defense Minister Nikolai Ninchev told Bulgarian media the cargo was undeclared as humanitarian aid, but the foreign ministry had information that it was not humanitarian aid, but some kind of weaponry. Last week, the U.S. asked Greece to revoke permission for Russian overflights after reports mounted that Moscow was ramping up its military presence in Syria. Responding to the unfolding events, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov said Moscow had no plans to boost its presence in Syria or transform its naval facility at the Syrian port of Tartus into a major new base. Syria is Russia's most important ally in the Middle East, with the Assad regime being a major buyer of Russian arms.
Video has now emerged of one of the Paris attacks. CCTV cameras inside a restaurant caught the moment the first bullets were fired.
About 4 to 10 people had been shot outside of this cafe. It was a gorgeous night in Paris, not like this, and people were outdoors sitting there.
So people were killed, essentially murdered, gunned down, just really yards from your position, from where you were.
Yeah, and it so easily could have been us, and it was an awful moment. I think we're thankful and so sad for the city that we love, people who live here and people who love to visit it.
And how do you feel today? Because sometimes when a shocking event happens, you don't really process it fully until the next day. How do you feel today? You came so close.
Just sad. To be honest, it was strange to be so in the center of things. We weren't processing the news, and we were so concerned about all of our friends. I am still in shock and really, really, really sad for the city and for my friends here.
And it was a close call. And you're from New York, of course, a city that's known, I mean, that 9/11 really was a traumatic experience for that city, for the country as well. And here you are in Paris, going through as well. It's a question that's been raised. Would this be the French 9/11?
I wouldn't want to comment on that. I think after the Hebdo attacks were so heartbreaking last year, to think that this is, 10 months later, and this was just steps from where the March for Peace took place, leaving from Republique.
Yeah.
That is particularly poignant at this moment. I think I'm just thinking of how we can come together and move forward and have this be something that does not happen again.
Would you consider leaving? Because you're working
Absolutely not.
on Monday, right?
I will not leave
You're
Paris.
staying in Paris.
Yeah, there's no reason to leave, and to be honest, I'd rather have it be known that this is a place where I would like to be. It's a wonderful city. I absolutely love the people here, and this has become my second home. I go back and forth for work, so I would like to stand with Paris by staying here.
Erin, all right, thanks very much. We really appreciate your time and sharing your story with us. As you mentioned, the weather is now matching the mood across the French capital.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
See here is nothing more than a crisis actor. And why do they smile? Because first off, no one died, no one got hurt. Number two, they're making their acting debut. They can't help but expose themselves as actors that they are. That's why you see these big smiles. They know they're getting their 15 minutes of fame, 5 minutes of fame, 20 minutes of fame, whatever the case may be. Just look at these images. And this woman, or this student, supposedly her best friend was shot up, is in the hospital. Does this look like a person that is in distress? I don't think so. Not only don't think so, I know so. As I mentioned in my previous video, Freemasons that run this world, highest degree in the Scottish Rite 33, order out of chaos. This is what it's all about. They create this chaos. When the dust clears, dust settles, they have their order. And their order is gun control. Again with the 33. Supposedly 13 dead and 20 injured. You count brain dead masses that watch CNN, it was 33. Going back in time, the Illuminati card game from 1985. These psychopaths that run this world, they're telling you what they're going to do before they do it.
Extra Belgian soldiers were deployed in Molenbeek, Brussels over the weekend. The move came after the mayor requested more security for the city, which remains on maximum alert. Police carried out several raids in Molenbeek earlier this week and arrested at least 2 people they suspect of being related to the Paris attacks. One of the suicide bombers came from Molenbeek. A suspect on the run is also from here, and the suspect killed in the police raid in St. Denis was based in Molenbeek. Belgium has been at the heart of investigations into the Paris attack after the links to Brussels and the poor district of Molenbeek in particular emerged.
Pepper spray flies after police tell protesters to get out of the street that has become synonymous with civil unrest. West Florissant in Ferguson, Missouri, erupting again one night after shots rang out, scattering protesters and police. The night after the barrage of gunfire and 2 stores were looted, West Florissant had some new guests. Armed men who call themselves the Oath Keepers, here they say to protect the U.S. Constitution and in particular an employee of Infowars.com who says its journalist was attacked and beaten after witnessing looting. He's wearing a black hat. We snapped photos of the moment he went to police, his face bloodied. The controversial Oath Keepers, their armed presence a sore spot with protesters who say they're unarmed, but getting much of the police attention. Though Missouri's gun laws allow people to openly carry if their guns are legally obtained. The night before, we witnessed a store owner who armed himself too, protecting his store, which had been looted in the past.
Out of my face, back up.
Meantime, police have made at least 85 arrests in 24 hours as planned civil disobedience took place in and around Ferguson. Blocking highways and stopping traffic, frustrations and fear causing one driver to step on the gas.
I had planned another closing message, but I feel compelled to say what I'm about to say. Now, I risk sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government.
Executive order signed by President Obama has sparked controversy on both sides of the political aisle. The National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order was signed quietly Friday night. It gives the president the power to control U.S. resources.
The Rules Committee is going to meet in the House. They are going to come up with a rule that makes it okay for them to do a same-day bill. So they'll pass this rule. It's, believe it or not, called martial law.
This would give the President of the United States the authority to declare basically martial law during times of peace.
There are new disturbing developments out of Washington tonight regarding the President's belief that he has the legal authority to assassinate U.S. citizens. Incredibly enough, it appears that our Commander-in-Chief actually believes that authority exists not only on foreign soil, but right here on American soil as well.
But Senators McCain and Levin have added this legislation which would authorize the President to declare the entire United States of America, all 50 states and all territories, to be a battlefield, even though there's no battle, thanks be to God, going on here.
War on terror is different.
And that would authorize him to use Commander-in-Chief authority in the United States, to use the military to arrest people in the United States who, in the President's opinion, are enemies of the country.
Particularly to hear President Obama claim the power to keep people in prison indefinitely with no charges against them, no conviction, no sentence, just imprisonment.
Joining us now is former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. Dan, thanks a lot for joining us. What do you mean there's no such thing as gun control, only people control? Tell me what that means.
Tucker, this is part of your ideological ploy by this administration. They're not being authentic with America, whether it's the sequester, healthcare, or the gun control issue. What they do is they manipulate an emotional crisis, a national emotional crisis, to further an ideological agenda which involves the evaporation, the slow disintegration of your civil rights, your liberties, your ability to live and let live. And it's a disturbing pattern that, frankly, is really starting to get under my skin.
David, why does the DHS need 450 million hollow point bullets?
That kind of ammo that they purchased from ATK, hollow point ammunition, as you had explained, it's designed to, tear through human flesh and then expand. It's designed to kill people. This is not the optimal kind of ammo you would buy for target practice. It's more expensive and it's more precise.
Do you think this is a sign that they're preparing for some sort of mass civil unrest?
So they have an open bid right now, DHS, for even more ammunition for 175 million rounds of .223 caliber rifle ammo. It's almost identical to the ammunition used by NATO peacekeeping forces. So that's very interesting. Are they planning on some kind of widespread economic unrest in the U.S. that would require NATO forces to help us out?
$500 million in surplus military weaponry from the Pentagon, which is authorized through the Pentagon's 1033 program. During the late 70s, Congress passed legislation called Posse Comitatus, barring the military from operating on American soil. And in the early 80s, there was an effort to circumvent that in Congress by arming police with military-grade weaponry. And now we're seeing that play out in the streets. People in the inner city in the U.S. have been experiencing this. So civilians in the U.S. are now up against basically military-style policing.
A pretty scary scene along the Chicago River turns out to be a military training exercise.
There was nothing routine that folks reported about seeing the jarring, as they witnessed the jarring scene of at least 3 Black Hawk helicopters flying at times in close order formation.
Just in, a military drill in downtown Miami, complete with these Black Hawk helicopters, elite soldiers, and police officers swarming the street.
Take a look, swing back over here. This may be involved in this training or not. Again, let me tell you what all of this is that we know of. It's a joint military training exercise involving local police, also military.
Sight of Army helicopters and the sound of gunfire created a lot of concern this afternoon in one Houston neighborhood.
There were armed men in fatigues, plenty of weapons, and what many thought were real live rounds.
I told you they were coming.
There's no lights on them. They're like bugs.
The entire city of Boston is in lockdown. In the suburb of Watertown, police with guns drawn are searching door to door.
I mean, we had martial law up there. FBI and all these agents coming in, closing things down, going to people's houses.
Mr. President, I do want to get right to the news of this week.
Sure.
The terrorism in Boston.
Yeah.
Many people have wondered if it took you right back to 9/11 when you heard it.
Well, at first, I was deeply concerned that there might have been a organized plot. I don't know all the facts. I don't think we all know all the facts, but I was deeply concerned that this could have been another
While they're doing this, they're amassing this wealth in order to redirect it toward martial law endeavor, and not just in America, but globally. They want to lock down every country and force us into global governance, eventually force us into a global reserve currency that is like the Bancor that the IMF has been pushing.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's fucking sad. Something just happened. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. I'm trying to get this on film.
a riot. This is a riot. Oh, they here. They are here because of that. I don't even think I could count the number of police vehicles out here. It's 4, 8, K9. This is war, man. This is war. No problem. No problem. All right. No problem. No problem. They told me to stay out the street. I don't see the purpose in that. They're letting everybody break into businesses, but they're keeping us out of the street. This is crazy. This is crazy. This fucking breaks my heart.
President Obama has officially declared a state of emergency in Michigan because of water contamination in the city of Flint. This allows the Federal Emergency Management Agency to provide emergency assistance to the area for 90 days. A White House press release says the administration has authorized water filters, water filter cartridges, water test kits, and other necessary related items be provided to residents. Emergency aid of this sort is typically capped at $5 million. This comes just 2 days after Michigan Governor Rick Snyder requested help dealing with the fallout of a water crisis that seems to be getting worse. It started almost 2 years ago when Flint switched its water supply from Lake Huron to the Flint River in an effort to save money. Almost immediately, residents began to point out the strange taste, smell, and color of the water. Both city and state officials were insistent the water was safe. The city's former mayor even drank some water from the tap to make the point. But officials failed to account for the Flint River's saltiness. The water is 19 times more corrosive than Lake Huron. The city has already switched back to Lake Huron water, but the Flint River water had already corroded the lead-lined pipes, causing lead to contaminate the water. Doctors caution high levels of lead can impact development in kids, even leading to decreased IQs.
Lead is something that needs to be prevented and never ever reaching the body of a child, because when it does, it is irreversible and there is no treatment.
As the investigation into who knew what and when they knew it intensifies, many people are calling for the resignation of Governor Snyder. He's apologized for what happened, but that hasn't stopped protests. The current mayor of Flint has said cleaning up the mess and providing health treatments to those affected could cost up to $1.5 billion.
On January 2nd, an armed militia took over a wildlife refuge outside of Burns, Oregon, managed by the Federal Bureau of Land Management, or the BLM. The militia is led by Nevada native Ammon Bundy, and it's refused to leave until the government turns over the federal land to the people of Harney County.
It's been almost a week now since the militia led by Ammon Bundy have been occupying the Mallow Wildlife Refuge headquarters. And whilst the people of Harney County are happy that the issues faced by ranchers have been raised by the occupation, they're getting pretty tired of it carrying on for so long and the disruption that the occupation has caused. So we're going to head up to the refuge and see really if this militia are here for the long haul. This is the entrance to the wildlife refuge. There aren't that many militia guys that we can see, but there are a hell of a lot of media. We've heard from some of the people in the town how they've spoken about how they're upset that some of the militia guys here are from outside the county, the state, and one of those guys is John Ritzheimer, who's got a bit of a controversial history with patriot groups.
The Bundys have been staying in this building since the occupation started. It's guarded by an armed militia member 24 hours a day. Outside the refuge, members of the militia, including John Ritzheimer, have kept armed watch every night.
This is the time for selflessness for our country. Thomas Paine said, "I prefer peace, but if trouble must come, you let it come in my time, so that my children may know peace."
Amen.
This leads me to think that this comet is important to these people, so let's continue and see where it takes us. Let's take a closer look at the comet itself to find any abnormalities. I will now cut to a clip from BP Earthwatch, who does a brilliant analysis of the comet itself.
Guys, this image was the last one that we got from Hubble, and it was on the video a few weeks ago. And they did an overlay of 3 images to get this coloration that you see in here. They used blue, red, and I think the black and white filter, took the shots and overlaid them, and we came out and they said it was a smooth image. And the video that I did where we were watching the meeting, if you remember, of the different astronomers and scientists at the IC meeting, the Comet I-Sun meeting, and one of the guys at the end said that the jets were irregular. They were not, they were at a distinct angle from the sun. Well, and again, I was complaining that if they were getting shots every 15 minutes of Hubble, from Hubble, why aren't we getting more? Well, what I wanted to do was find the images that they used to make this composite. Now, when they overlaid this, they smoothed a lot of edges out. Was that the purpose? To make it look like one object, guys? Is that what they're doing? I want to dig a little deeper here. Now, I found the 3 images that they used to make this picture, and now I think I know why. I'm going to pull this over. This is the black and white one. This is from the red filter and the green filter here. I'm going to pull this black and white up, guys. Just hang in there a minute. See what we got. Now, without the overlay and what they've added in, you can see what's inside this comet. are inside this coma haze here. You have three objects. And this is not an object behind these two. You see how this cloud is irregular? This will not be happening. Now this is what's called the Hubble Web Viewer, and I'm going to put it up after I load the video. You can't put links in the description until after the video is loaded, so sometimes it takes about 10 minutes to get that information under it. But this is called the iSign Web Viewer or Web Image Viewer, and you notice the numbers here. As you move your cursor around, it gives you where you're at. You see that? Now it also has what's called invert, darker, and lighter. You notice how they've got it real bright. Now this is the released image here, and at this sun, this star appears to be having a solar flare or coronal mass ejection out the side. But let's try to get it. Let's just darken this thing a couple of times, and again I'm going to link this. You notice that it's starting to clear up. It was overexposed, the one that was released. Here's iSign. Here's your coronal mass ejection. That's what's inside that coma. Now that looks like a comet. This I don't know, but again it's part of this cloud. We'll pull it up. You can also zoom, and it will zoom very big. One more time. Now let's go to light, and let's blur it out the way that it was when you go to the page. As we lighten it up, it's just increasing your exposure time, basically. Watch what happens to it. You still see that oblong shape inside that coma? There's about the way we get it. Now we're going to go back dark. Right there. Now remember that one scientist said some of the jets are not pointed right. Is that what we're looking at here, guys? Something's just not right. I would say this was some kind of marker or something if it was not for this cloud. Pull it up. Let's look at it close. This is the real image of what's inside that cloud. I'm going to go darker. You tell me. I don't know. Heads up.
So I hope we can agree this comet, if indeed it is a comet at all, has three parts which seem to be moving in formation, for the lack of a better word. Now we will take a look at its orbit and see if there is any other interesting abnormalities that let us make more sense of it all. As you can see, ISON is on a highly elliptical orbit around our Sun. When I saw this, it reminded me of a binary star system, which has its orbit of its two stars as follows. At the same time, it clicked that this orbital pattern had been used before in a calendar. I put it to you that it was not the ancients that were the ones who were wrong with their concept of time, but it was our concept of time that has been manipulated by the Gregorian calendar from the Church. Given that if all this is true, in its passing some large-scale events are going to happen, let's take a look and see if there is any national exercises being carried out in the same time frame as it is passing, since the US government seems to have this remarkable ability to stage exercises on the exact events that are taking place, such as the bomb exercise in Boston and the hijacking exercise on 9/11.
Possible emergency FEMA Region 3 alert. FEMA Region 3 consists of Washington, D.C., Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. This alert was sent to us by Senator Sheldon R. Songstad, retired, of South Dakota State. Here is what the Senator's National Preparedness Research turned up. FEMA purchase orders for over $14.2 million for MREs and heater meals to be delivered to Region 3 by October 1st. FEMA purchase orders for 2 million pouches of emergency water to be delivered to FEMA Region 3 by October 1st. FEMA purchase orders for $13.6 million for MREs and heater meals to be delivered to Austin by October 1st. 9-week training course for UN peacekeepers in CONUS to learn urban warfare. They're learning urban warfare, and they need to learn English and U.S. weapons systems. We're having foreign soldiers learn our U.S. weapons systems. This has been going on since the 4th week of July for 386,000 troops to be completed by October 1st. 2,800 MRAPs must be delivered to DHS by October 1st. No leave will be allowed for U.S. military from September 28th through November 5th. NORCOM yearly training for civil unrest is to be suspended until September 27th to be performed in northeast coastal areas. Date for release of QE3 report is to be moved to October 16th. All DHS agents must qualify with sidearm, shotgun, and AR-15 by September 28th. No mention of yearly less lethal qualification. The sporadic testing of GPS and communication satellites is coordinated for the very first time ever with a testing date of September 29th. POTUS mandates to FEMA and DHS concerning support for metropolitan communities dealing with the extreme climate change must be complete by October 1st. These mandates were issued during the last 3 weeks. Over 300 school systems in the U.S. have determined their 3-day kits for each school and 3-day kits for each student to take with them. All deliveries are scheduled for the month of September. All National Guard units will complete riot control and disaster assistance training during this year's annual 2-week training. All units must have their training complete by September 30th. Daily testing of emergency broadcast system to begin on September 25th and run through October 2nd. Eastern-based Coast Guard units to perform massive group training, usually performed in the Gulf, in the Virginia and Delaware areas. This is a 10-day training mission to begin September 26th.
So as they all qualify in the 10 days training, there is less than 2 weeks for the passing of ISON. It might be wise for you to allow your iPhone to run completely flat for this period of time, my American brothers. We all have been watching you make the same transitionary steps as pre-Nazi Germany for many years now. They have been building the engine bolt by bolt in front of your eyes so that you don't see. If economic hitmen had not enslaved most of the world to the US dollar, I would not feel the way about the American corpocracy and the money masters of the World Bank that control it. You're the whacking stick of the Rothschild banking cartel, and I want you to know that guns will not solve this problem. Endurance and lack of fear of death will make all the difference. As we know from the past, the men taking the orders eventually help the people if they do not found themselves as the enemy. standing in the streets and moving like a school of fish around the attacks, no matter what, but without a word or violence, will make all the executioners think as a human, as they indiscriminately murder innocents, maintaining silence so they have to hear the cries of the innocent people that they harm, and more importantly, allow them to hear their own conscience, rather than reactions to the training and warfare that have been drilled into them. In the end, we are all merely consciousness contained within a magnetic bubble, collectively contained within another magnetic bubble, collectively contained within another magnetic bubble, which is just one magnetic knot in the web of light that encompasses the universe, which is also replicated within us. We as a collective are going to make the choice of our destination. Live by the sword and die by the sword. Don't fire a shot and kill us all, please. This is much bigger than you and I.
I am now declaring that the recent cluster of microcephaly and other neurological abnormalities reported in Latin America, following a similar cluster of French Polynesia in 2014, constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. As a precautionary measure, and because of the association, a coordinated international response is needed to improve surveillance, the detection of infections, congenital malformations, the detection of neurological complications.
A coordinated international response is needed to improve surveillance, the detection of infections, congenital malformations, the detection of neurological complications.
To intensify the control of mosquito populations and to expedite the development of diagnostic tests and vaccines to protect people at risk, especially during pregnancy. The committee found no public health justification for restrictions on travel or trade to prevent the spread of Zika virus. At present, the most important protective measures are the control of mosquito populations and the prevention of mosquito bites in at-risk individuals, especially pregnant women.